Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about player bases in D&D, okay? So, why should you have a player base as a DM, okay? Well, let's go over a few examples of why, okay? So, let's say your campaign is taking place in a kingdom or region, okay? And you want it to be a little centralized thing. They're not going to go venturing out over the entire world, okay? Well, then you may want to consider a player base for the following reasons. Basically, a player base gives one, the players an ability to store items if you're using variant encumbrance. If you're not, it doesn't matter. Two, it allows the players to influence the actual events happening in the world in a small area, right? That you as a DM can control. Okay, now this is important. If you want your players to interact with you in your world, it is very important that they become on board with the idea of doing such. Okay, one of the easiest ways I have found to do this is by building a player base. Okay, because if you don't do so and you just let them adventure around, sure they'll interact with the world and they may like your lore, but they're kind of wandering around aimlessly, doing random quests to get gold. What are they going to spend the gold on? More magic items, I guess. There's no real depository on what they should do with it, right? If you add a player base to the mix, you can actually have players be like, oh, well, instead of buying this random stuff for like that 50,000 gold, I'm going to invest it in our base, okay? And they can receive cost return benefits on this, okay? Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say the players go help out a NPC smith, right? And they say, would you like to come work for us in our base, right? The smith would say, yeah, sure, okay. If you pay me well enough, yeah, I'll come work for you. The players now will have the ability to make items, and if he's a really good smith, they'll have the ability to make, magic items, right? At a discount, let's say 5% of whatever the cost was going to be originally, right? Because they're making it in-house. This gives the players the opportunity to specialize in what they would like to see the base do for them, and also give them a lot of perks for having a base, right, and running it. So, for example, I had mentioned the smiths. You could also do a thing with wizards. Okay, if you add wizards, you can reduce the cost of spells. And by spells, I mean spell scrolls, or you could also be able to cast limited magic around the base, right? To um, do whatever, right? You could have a whole bunch of find familiar. You could have a whole bunch of familiars around and patrol and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? Another thing that players could do is may have hire a mage of a certain level. Let's say he's like sixth or seventh level, right? And he can start making third level spell scrolls for them, right? He'll want a percentage of the cut, right? But he can start making spell scrolls that the players can use, and they can also go sell. And you can see how you can start building a lot of wealth like this, right? And become very powerful. That is very good. Okay? And each player may want to do different things. For example, one player may want to recruit some troops. Okay? Fine. You recruit some troops to defend the base, all goody, right? You can go check out my squad combat module on Patreon if you would like to see more depth in that, right? But let's say they recruit them, like 10 people. And then another player's like, I want those people to actually be pretty well armed, right? So he's going to go make armor for them with his smith tools, right? And then you can upgrade the troops, right? And those troops are now better at fighting, right? One other player could go and want to find a mage so he can make some spell scrolls. Another one may want to go find a dude that can make magic items for them, okay? And all of these combined, the players can start using these perks and benefits to help themselves and the party, okay? Now, this helps all of them to start interacting and using teamwork a lot more, okay? That is one of the benefits of a player base, right? And that should be something that you should try to strive towards, right? Um, and basically, having the player base enables teamwork, gives the players perks, gives them the ability to influence a little area around them, and gives them a more reason to interact and pay attention to your lore. Okay, so I want to talk about this base. Okay, so this base is called Eagle View. Okay, this base Eagle View is on my Patreon. Okay, now I will go to my thing about today's sponsor is myself. Are you a dungeon master that has been frustrated by D&D mass combat rules? Well, worry no longer. I have a solution for you DMs. The Squad Combat module lets you run mass combat quickly with massive customization options. Do you like additional D&D supplements that improve the immersion and realism of your games? Want maps for your D&D adventures? Reduce your prep time, improve your games, and become a Patreon member today by clicking the link below in the description to join. And a big shout out to my patrons, right? And as I said, Eagle Views on Patreon. But let's get into it, okay? So the reason I have designed Eagle View this way is basically it's a castle on a ridge line or a cliff side, okay? It has a ditch on the outer side, has a bathhouse, has a tower, has a barn, toilets, and a storage area, okay? And baths. Now, the reason I have this area right here for interactability, okay? So that's another thing you can do with your player bases. So let's say your players recruit, I don't know, a captain, or let's say they recruit a captain of an elf descent, right? And he will be able to manage these troops. He'll be down here, right? They can also interact with their own troops, right? And they could go to the bar. The players could go to the bar and interact with them and talk about X, Y, and Z, right? They could also get influenced, or you can give them news about what's going on in the general area and some missions that they may take on, right? That's why there's a little quest board here. This is all stuff you can do for your world building without having it rammed down their throats. It just happens naturally. Your people are like, hey, boss, have you heard there's a goblin attack in X? Should we send our guys or should you guys want to go do it, right? And you could do payments and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that having a big area that's interactable with a whole bunch of NPCs that they recruit, okay, this is the important bit, that they recruit, right? Having a whole bunch of NPCs that you put there, the players may or may not interact with them. It depends, right? If you have a very few number of them, but you give them personalities, I would agree that they may interact with them. If you add like 20 NPCs here that you put in without giving any of the players any input on it, yeah, they're probably not going to interact with them a whole lot. You could easily build it up over time, but it does take time to do that, okay? That is why if you're designing a player base like this, I'd recommend that you have a main hub, okay, that all your players and all the NPCs can go to, okay? Next, I'm going to show you the basement, okay? The basement was down here. So this basement is basically a smiths and artificers and wizards and whatever, okay? If the players go out and recruit things for the base, right? Wizards, spellcasters, smiths, whatever. They will be able to produce items, okay? Magic items, maybe produce evil weapons for the people out here, and they can make them at a reduced cost, okay? This means that if the players go out and hire a bunch of smiths, they can start making weapons at reduced cost so they can arm their own troops, and they can also go export it and sell and get money, okay, to do other things with. I would recommend you do something similar. It depends on how big you want your base. Obviously, this is a castle, so I have enough space to do it. And I'm thinking the smiths will be very important because players obviously like to have magic items, and they also like to have decent weapons and armor, right? And getting them at a discount is very good if they put the time and effort to go find a smith, right? So that's what this whole area down here is for. Is basically just a research laboratory slash smithing slash whatever thing, okay? So if we go back up to the ground floor, we can see that we come up this way, and then we have a second story, okay? A second story is up here, and then this room right here is a war room, and then this rooms are just basically rooms for the people to sleep in, okay? So I'll talk about a war room, okay? War room. So a war room is basically just a room that your players can interact with people. You could do Patreons here. You could have them like talk to them. They could have an image of them. You could also have discuss with other NPCs in here or just the players in here about what's going on with the company, what they should or shouldn't do, right? What should they do with the player base? Who should they hire? Who should they not hire? It's basically just a big office for your players. I'd recommend you do something similar to this, okay? Rather than talking out in the open in front of everyone, right? That's up to your prerogative, right? And then you see this tower. If you go up the stairs, right, you're going to have a ballista up here to defend against attackers out here, right? Very, very handy. And if you go up the stairs here from the ground floor, so you see here, okay, so this is raised over the area of the gatehouse. And then you go to the second floor, you will be able to shoot out and you'll be able to shoot down, right? Very good gatehouse design. I like it, right? So lastly, we'll talk about this little third level here. If you go up to the third level, you can see just a whole bunch of rooms, basically for people to sleep in. And if you go to the fourth level, it's just all roofs, right? Now, why is it like this? Basically, I like levels and I like designing big bases, okay? That's why it's all on Patreon and it's all there for you. Dungeon draft file, everything. And the reason I like this base design is basically it gives the players the ability to have a lot of people in a defensible location of this thing, right? It's got walls, it's got everything, right? And the players can also go upgrade it to defend them against attackers that may or may not come for them, right? It also has living accommodations, and it looks kind of realistic, at least in my interpretation of it, right? But that's just some of the reasons why it's like that, okay? So, those re-summarize everything, okay? Why should you have a player base? Basically, player base gives the people, your players, the ability to get perks, and it gives them the ability to influence the local area around them and be able to be more involved in the storytelling. Um, and those are the main reasons you want to have a player base, right? You don't want a player base that they're going to go to once every few weeks, and yeah, do it regularly, okay? If they're not going to be staying regularly in a regular region, I don't know if it really makes sense for them to have a player base. But if they stay in a regular region or somewhere around the same area, then it does make sense for them to have the base, right? Give them a lot more opportunity to interact with the people, okay? So, with that, that is today's conclusion of the video, right? If you found this video helpful, leave a like. And if you want to play in a D&D game that will be taking place a week from now, actually, and will be including this base, then head to my Discord and message me about it, okay? Otherwise, on your screen should be a link to my Patreon and a link to my series about basically, village and all the way up to world building, okay? Otherwise, you people have a nice day.